All right, welcome out Monday morning. So here we are, Mama Mindset Monday, and once again another week of how to become a better version of yourself. So it's good that you're back. It shows that you're still wanting to become a better version of yourself, and you feel like you're not a finished product. So I guess that's good, right? I mean, if you decided not to come anymore, then you've already finished your evolution, and you are a finished product of whatever you're trying to become. But the fact that you're here. We're gonna have some discussion around kind of the next step of where you can go in your own personal life and in your business. So as we reflect a little bit on last week's call, we talked a lot about this concept of tension. In fact, as we were talking about tension, the thought came out that there is power in creating tension and making yourself have to show up. So by putting something out there and creating the need to be able to show up in a certain way. And as you look at that, what you'll find is that great work is a result of seeking out tension, not avoiding it. I would say that if you look at the world in general, what you're finding is that people most often try to avoid tension, where things become awkward and tight and you start to feel stretched. That's where people start to want to avoid and get away from that. Whereas the real power comes from looking that out and trying to find that and getting to a place in a mindset where you're saying to yourself, okay, I want to find more tension in my life because that will give me the ability to stretch. So you start to think about that concept, this idea of finding a way of stretching yourself and your business. So again, great work is the result of seeking out tension and not avoiding it. So we talked a lot about tension last week on our call, and we talked about this idea of how to create tension and finding ways of stretching yourself to getting to where you want to go. As we move into today's discussion, there will be several things that we're going to highlight and talk about. One of those is a quote. So in our Facebook group, I posted a short video. In the past, we've shared this video. If you look online, you can find a video of a gentleman named Alan who has an experience with Kobe Bryant. And he tells a story about how he met up with Kobe, and Kobe invited him to go work out with him in the morning. And when he arrived at this facility, his whole goal was to get there before Kobe Bryant got there. So he was getting up extra early. He was going to show up there even before the scheduled time that they're going to meet. And when he got there, the lights in the gym were already on, and Kobe was already he was drenched in sweat, had already been working out for quite some time. And as he just watched this workout, afterwards, he had a conversation, and the conversation went simply where he said, Kobe, you're the best player in the world. Why are you doing the most basic drills? Because what he was surprised by is that here he was watching this workout, and it was just basic stuff. It was a lot of stuff around footwork. There were some basic shots that were being done. There was just and a lot of the shots were just not that far from the hoop, and they were just little footwork drills and dribbling drills and passing drills and just different things that were very base level. And so he asked Kobe, why are you doing all these basic drills? And Kobe's response was, why do you think I'm the best in the world? I never get bored with the basics. So you think about that concept, this idea of getting bored with the basics. The question will come into play is, how are you in your real estate business? And what does that look like for you? And you start to think of this idea of mastering the basics. And I would say, as you start to look at this concept, you can reflect on the quote by John Wooden that champions are brilliant at the basics. What they're able to do is they're really able to dial in the basics. And you start to look in sports. What's interesting is you watch any sport that's out there, they always begin a season with some sort of training camp. Every sport does that. You look at baseball. So baseball just ended a month and a half ago, and they'll be picking up spring training coming up in the spring. It'll be coming up at late February, early March. You have players reporting back to spring training. And when they start with spring training, they just start with the basics, hitting the ball, doing some fielding work. And these are guys that have been playing baseball for decades, many times. And yet they start over with the basics. You look at the basketball season, and they open up with basketball season, they'll have your various training camps that start out. You look at football. Football starts off with multiple different spring training camps, and they have their fall camps. And it starts with the basics: blocking, tackling, just basic concepts that these players have been able to instill for many years, and yet they start over every single year and start focusing on the basics. So I'd ask you, if you're looking at starting a new year in real estate and you're stepping into 2023, and you're to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go back to the basics in my business. Like I want a really good 2023. I really want to focus on having a really successful year. So the idea is, if you're stepping into 2023 for your real estate business, and if you were to go back to this idea of going back to the basics, what are the basics of real estate? And you start to look at that and start to reflect on some of the key things that come to mind. So I started to think about that a little bit this weekend as I was preparing some thoughts for today. And I kind of broke it down into a couple of different ideas. One was, there's an idea of creating relationships, and we spend a lot of time on that. We talk a lot about that. We talk about the power of building relationships. And so looking at that, are you spending time creating relationships? At the same time, are you doing things to become better at creating relationships? So the thing to keep in mind is that there's the action item of creating relationships, and there's also the mental part of it too. You start to think about this idea of preparing to create relationships, and are you learning skill sets? Are you reading books? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you spending time around people who are good at creating relationships? Are you learning how to create relationships better? And then are you implementing and doing work to create better relationships? So I would say that's one of the keys. As you start to look at what does it take to become successful in real estate, it's becoming better at creating relationships. And for some people, they start to say things like, well, I'm an introvert, or I'm like not very good at creating relationships. And I would say that's not true. I would say that someone who's very introverted can be very good at creating relationships. They're just going to create relationships. They'll be more authentic in the relationships that they create, especially with other introverted people. They'll be able to create connection with people. And so creating relationships doesn't mean you have to be super outgoing. You just want to learn how to be able to create relationships at your own speed and at your own pace. So again, this idea of creating relationships is a fundamental piece. When you start to look at, like, what does it take to get to where you want to go in your real estate business? So that's one conversation item. Another basic to real estate is finding prospects. So it's one thing to go and create relationships and go and find people that you can be able to have interaction with and develop rapport. And we talk a lot about real estate being a contact sport and having contact with people. Now, as you have contact with people, how do you differentiate the people who are potentially going to do real estate and not do real estate? And how do you separate that? Because if you can create relationships with people, that's great. But how do you start to find real estate opportunities amongst all of the relationships that you might be creating? Well, I would say the first thing you start to realize when it comes to this idea of finding prospects is that real estate is happening everywhere. Just having the mindset that there is real estate happening in all corners of the market. There are so many opportunities that are all over the place. And too often we put blinders on and we are looking for a certain specific type of real estate that we see in our mind, when in effect, there are unique opportunities all over the place of creating opportunities in real estate. So this idea of finding prospects is a key part of the process, because you might be able to create relationships with people, but you've got to be able to start to differentiate and find ways of creating value to have the people who are looking at doing something real estate related start to stand out, start to raise their hands that they want real estate help, or they want some more insights and guidance around things. And so this whole idea of finding prospects is a key part of the process. And it's allocating time in your schedule to be able to start to do that, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to be finding prospects. I'm going to be doing things to be able to find and create opportunities. Next, another basic when it comes to real estate is this concept of converting to an appointment. The ability to ask for appointments, to be able to create appointments, and to be able to have people show up and hold to an appointment. I would say that this concept alone is what separates the really, really good agents to the agents who are mid-level and the ones who are struggling. Like being able to really get an appointment and be able to have people commit to that and be compelled to want to meet with you is what separates agents all the time. And this is a skill set, something that's practiced, something that's worked on, and that really comes into place with more and more practice. If you look at the agents who have been in business for a while, many of them, it just looks so natural for them to set an appointment up. But I can promise you, for any of us, it was never natural the whole time. Like there were many, many times where it was super awkward. There are many times where we felt super hesitant to ask for an appointment. And there were times that we asked for it that was not pretty. It was not good. But those are all learning experiences. And as you step into this next year, this idea of going back to the basics, it's really understanding how to be at a higher level of asking for an appointment. Now we spend time on our Friday calls, on our momentum calls, of unpacking this and running through some different scenarios. But I would say that this right here is got to be a focus for any agent to really move the needle in their businesses next year. Because what's changing is, in the past, these last couple of years, is there was an abundance of real estate happening. So it didn't really take a lot of skill set, or it didn't really take a heightened level of ability to set an appointment. People were just setting appointments all the time. It was just natural. And there was so much business that we were doing more to turn people away than we were to try to create opportunities. And so again, we talked about a couple of things that are key: creating relationships, finding clients and finding prospects. And then from there, generating appointments. And you'll take those conversations and start to create appointments. Now, as you start to create appointments, the next basic concept to really have in place for your real estate business is diagnosing the situation. You are going to become really, really good at problem solving, and you've got to be able to diagnose the situation. You've got to be able to ask important questions. You got to ask questions that are more than just yes/no questions. Asking questions that are going to give you some clarity about where people are at in their life and their business right now. Like this is a key thing. Let's diagnosing the situation. So how is this going to be a game changer for you? Got to know how to diagnose the situation. The problem is that too often in real estate, we just assume that we know what's in the best interest for people versus really asking questions and being able to set some time aside to really focus in to understand better where someone's currently at in their life right now and determining where they want to go. And next, as you start to understand if you're diagnosing the situation, now you're going to start to look at how to prescribe the solution. Now, too often in our business, we prescribe too soon in the process. We see a situation and we instinctively just go ahead and jump to the solution without really unpacking what's really going on and seeing what the real situations that people are running into. If you were to prescribe before even having the diagnosis, are you really in effect creating real estate malpractice because you're prescribing something without even knowing what the diagnosis is? I mean, if you do that in the medical arena, you try to prescribing someone medications without really diagnosing the situation, like that would be considered malpractice. Yet how often do we do that in real estate? How often are we or the people around us committing real estate malpractice by prescribing a solution without really understanding the diagnosis and without really spending time? And I would say that this relationship between prescribing solutions and diagnosing the situation is oftentimes what's considered a sales approach. Like when you hear people saying like, oh, that's such a salesy process. Well, oftentimes it's because what's happening is the person is trying to prescribe something without even knowing what's in the best interest of the client. And the client oftentimes can feel that, like they feel that that's what's happening right now. And if your client feels like they're being sold, it's really hard to create a relationship that's going to generate more referrals from that type of inauthentic relationship. Next comes this concept of problem solving. So one of the keys and one of the basics of real estate and having a successful real estate business is being able to problem solve, being able to find the different problems that are going to come up and knowing that there are going to be obstacles along the way. And that's honestly, this is one of the reasons why we make the money that we do, is because we're able to diagnose problems. We're able to diagnose the situation. And when problems start to arise, then we can handle that problem. Then we can handle the situation, because people have now entrusted us to guide them along this path. And if there wasn't that trust there, then they would just go do it themselves. But most of the time, the reason they don't want to do it themselves is because of the different problems that might arise, and they might not know the answers to those. So being able to be a problem solver, and the nice thing is that any one of you with your real estate license, you're not alone and have to figure out the problems and figure out the solutions. Like, you have a team of people that's available to be able to reach out to be able to give you guidance and help. So if you're ever feeling stuck, or your client's feeling stuck, you have a whole team of people that's available to help, like, determine problems and determine how to get out of those situations. So again, leaning into that with this idea of problem solving could create tension, but you want that tension because that was what gives you value in the relationship. If every transaction went super smooth from start to finish, after a while, people will feel like they don't need you or me or anybody in this industry. Because if it was all perfect all the time, it'd be pretty simple, and they wouldn't want to pay the money that they pay, because to a certain extent, we're offering them some sort of insurance policy around the issues that might come up and giving them some peace of mind and security that things will work out in the end. All right, next, this idea of overseeing the details. So not only are we helping to diagnose situations, prescribing solutions, helping to problem solve, but you have all the details that are going through. And there's many, many details in the process of real estate. Everything from the initial contracts that you're writing up, to all the different dates that are in play, all the different moving pieces, from lining up all the different vendors, from like getting all the different things in a timely manner happening, and triggering all the different things that are coming in line with a successful purchase or sale. A lot of different moving parts, a lot of overseeing details, and that's one of the roles that we bring. We're like a conductor of an orchestra. Many different notes are being played from many different sections, and making sure that those sections are playing at the right time is key, because we're trying to get across the finish line. And then another skill set, one of the things that will really help to separate ourselves, is negotiating for a win-win solution. I would say that oftentimes the mistake that people make when it comes to negotiating is they try to make it so that they're the only winners in the process. They're trying to take advantage of the other side. And having that mindset makes it so that it's more of a mindset of animosity. There's a little bit of a divide and a gap that's created there when you're always trying to beat everybody else up and you're trying to get a win-win for just you. Real estate, technically, if it's done right, will be a benefit for all parties. You've helped a buyer buy a place that they really want. You've helped a seller get a price that they wanted. It all works out in the end, and they get across the finish line. Now, granted, there are all different types of people in this industry, whether it's clients or whether it's agents. And then there are many who feel the only way that they bring value is by trying to beat up everybody else in the process. But I would say that those people, they struggle with the long-term success because they burn through a lot of relationships and a lot of business and a lot of potential business that could have been created had they just treated everybody in a fair situation. Another concept to having the details and the basics in your business is this idea of being calm under pressure. So real estate, especially when it comes to residential real estate, is a very emotional process. If you haven't learned that yet, it's an extremely taxing and emotional process for many parties involved. You've got to think about it. I mean, with most people that are buying or selling, they're buying or selling because of some sort of thing that's happening in their life currently. Now, oftentimes it's some sort of outside pressure that's creating the need to buy or sell. It might be that something as dramatic as a divorce, or maybe it's a death in the family. Maybe it's a job change. Maybe it's the birth of a family addition and needing more space. Maybe it's a job change. Maybe there's several different factors. Maybe it's a financial motivation because of a need or a want. You have all these different things that create heightened emotions. Then throw on top of that the fact that a home is usually the most expensive purchase or sale that someone will ever deal with. You're dealing with significant money now. Then throw on top of that, you've got two parties that are going to be involved, both on the purchase and on the sale. So you've got like two sets of people. And then on top of that, you might throw in another agent or so that might like throw in their own emotions. They've got their own drama going on in their life. So you start to create all this drama that's pent up, and then throw on there some different dates and time frames and whatever the living situation is. It's can make for a pretty intense process. And I would say that oftentimes you see people at their best, you see them at their worst during a real estate transaction. Like it really tests who someone really is. And so your ability to stay calm under moving conditions, that'll be a difference maker. And your ability to be able to be a calming voice when people are feeling super stressed and overwhelmed is going to be key in that process. Then lastly, having fun. And so you might be like, I'll have fun if I'm successful, but all this other stuff doesn't seem like a lot of fun, maybe. But the fun is created when we start to realize that this is we have an amazing industry to be a part of, and we have the ability to create income like very few other industries can create. And you have the ability to really influence a lot of different lives and have a pretty strong impact to help people. And there's some benefit to that. And there's some emotions that you can, and then some highs that you can take on personally from being able to help people have some success. As you look into this whole concept is like, it will allow you to live into your best lives. As you start to look at 2023, your ability to focus on the basics will be able to dictate the kind of lifestyle that you'll be able to have, because the more that you're focused on the basics and mastering the basics, the more solid the foundation is for your ideal lifestyle. And it's key to keep in mind that everything in life always goes back to the basics. So you start to look at things getting hard or things getting different or things changing. What can you do to get back to the basics? And success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals. So I'll say that again. Success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals. So here's who you are, right? Realtor. A caring matchmaker who helps people until they find a home they fall completely in love with. Pretty simple. You write it all down. I was searching like what would be a simple definition that would kind of resonate with many of us on this call. A caring matchmaker makes sense, who helps people until they find a home that they fall completely in love with. So for many of us, that might take a little bit of time, or helping people get to a place that they really want to find. I did come across this quote too. Bald realtor. It's like a normal realtor, only better looking, more charming, and sells more houses, which I think that totally comes into place. So, but for many of you on the call, don't freak out. You don't have to shave your head. Success will come in other ways too. You can do other things too, besides just that. But as you wrap this up, this idea of get the fundamentals down and the level of everything you do will rise. As you start to take a concept and you start to really look at the fundamentals, I can dictate. It's super easy to tell where someone's business will be by looking at their schedule and looking at what they've blocked out in their upcoming week. Like if you want to know how successful this week is going to be, you can look at your schedule right now and see, are you blocking out time to do the things that'll make the biggest difference? And if you're not, then you know that you're already on a path that's not going to allow you the successes that you really want. It's being able to look at your schedule. And even if you look at your next 30 days, do you have things blocked out to get what you really want? And if you're not doing that, then you know that you're not going to get the results that you want. It's being able to look at that schedule and it's going to be the dictator of getting to where you want to go. So our final thought is this closing thought by Kobe Bryant, and that is, I want to see if I can. I don't know if I can. I want to find out. I want to see. I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to break it down into its smallest form, smallest detail, and go after it. Day by day, one day at a time. So here's the thought I'm going to throw out there as we wrap up today. As you look for this next year and moving into it, your new year of 2023 has already started. The work that you're doing now will be, what you're sowing now will be reaped next year. So as you start to put in place the efforts that you're doing right now, if you were to commit for 30 days and say, okay, over the next 30 days, these are the things I'm going to be working on a consistent basis, then just test yourself. Just like this concept that Kobe Bryant threw out there, break it down to the smallest form and just, okay, I'm going to do this consistently. And then the challenge would be, how many days in a row can you be consistent with whatever you're putting in place for you to get to where you want to go?